end. So there's a lot to go, there's a lot of room to grow, but I think actually some of the talks from this morning about getting the data sets right, getting those foundations in place are quite key in healthcare because we're a long way behind.
Yeah, I'm not sure if my medical profession would enjoy taking a film of me, just to sort of send to me after the fact. But well,
well, if you were having complex rehab, you might want to know your journey and how you've done and what your outcome is and what your exercises are and what they should look like. You don't get any of that. You get handed a sheet of paper which you then have to follow. If you're lucky, you might get access to a video to follow. But actually, wouldn't it be better if we can sort of innovate and, like Rhys says, bring some of this technology that's helping all the other industries into healthcare?
Yep,
call to arms, people. We need you.
Awesome. Well, there you go. The first round of applause already. Nice. And Tom, as I said, you've been around and doing different roles for a long time and seen innovation and disruption in different fields. How do you feel, in your current role? What does disruption mean to you and your organisation?
So we, as an organisation, we focus on helping our clients to interact with their customers more effectively. And I think when we had sort of the prep conversation we had about this, one of the things that came out was, I think it might have been yourself, John, who said, how does that, do you see that as being different in different industries? And I think my answer was actually no. We've worked in lots. We work in central and local government. We work in retail. We work in financial services. Recently, we've made a shift into corporate travel of all the strange industries we could have chosen. And one of the reasons we did that is the challenges we saw there are in fact exactly the same as the ones we see everywhere else. So whilst we're talking about disruption, I think my views on this would be that the things that need to be disrupted tend to be the same elsewhere. And I can empathise a lot with what these guys have said from my wife is diabetic, so we're in and out of pharmacies and hospitals every 5 minutes. And to say that the information you get from them is disjointed is an understatement, and that follows across lots of other things. I had a similar experience. I've recently shifted to having VW as a car, and I had the same experience. I dropped my car off, and I did indeed there was a machine that took my keys off me, and then I got a beautiful video at the end. I never spoke to a human being. I'm used to dropping my Skoda off, where if I can convince somebody to come and tell me what's wrong with it, that's a miracle.
Excellent. Well, I mean, I should also say, as an accountant, the panel made me feel very comfortable because what we started talking about in the green room before was all about electric cars and the tax benefits of electric cars. We won't go into that right now, but
it was either that or conga lines.
It was those two. Yeah. And Simon, you've worked, as a consultant for SMEs particularly, and now sort of trying to build something to help SMEs get access to that kind of information, and so trying to disrupt the way that the kind of advice that you've delivered traditionally in person is now being delivered. But again, what does that mean to you, and what are you seeing the challenges maybe for SMEs in terms of bringing disruption and innovation into their organisations?
No, thanks, John. I think the two key things for me, one is the word disruption itself. So people think it means turning something on its head entirely and instantly. It's not. It's about making headway into some of the challenges, some of the problems, finding a great solution. So what we've done is really think back on our careers over the last 20, 30 years and say, okay, these things need to exist still, but actually there's something at the beginning. So rather than delve into, having expensive support right at the beginning, which a lot of SMEs cannot do, and we've done the research, it's about turning that bit on its head and saying, okay, let's get that first bit underway, raise people's game to then use what's out there as well. So I think from our perspective, disruption has been, let's start something different, but then let's use better what's out there. And I think that exists in all walks of life. And Penny's analogy there about healthcare, I've seen it firsthand with my parents. And actually, that kind of progress is what needs to be made, using what's there already, just improving it. So rather than saying, I've got a brand new way of doing everything, you're all redundant, what we're saying is use what's there, but start something different.
Nice.
And I mean, there was some talk earlier in one of the other sessions around innovation as a mindset, and I think we're working as an organisation and trying to encourage our people to be more innovative, and I feel like it's something that can definitely be taught and learned. It's just part of the culture of an organisation. But I know when we were discussing for the panel, we talked about the fact that one of the key things is that disruption or innovation is all about really is probably bringing an entrepreneurial thought process to challenge problems. How do you all feel about that, and what does that really mean for you? And particularly, I guess, for the two of you here who work in healthcare, where we've already established there maybe isn't that much of an entrepreneurial mindset at the moment.
Rhys, do you want to go?
I don't know where to start. I think, I mean, it's super important. You can't in an industry like ours, you know, you've got to constantly look at, I mean, firstly, you need to look at what's available. For us, patients have gotten, you know, they may have an app over here and the pharmacy system over here. So it's about how can we connect the two systems together to make patients' lives easier. But yeah, I mean, internally as well as externally, you've got to challenge each other on problems to make sure that you can consistently deliver a good service.
Yeah, and Tom, that connectivity is something that you guys do a lot of, and helping organisations bring disparate systems together. But do business owners think about that as a problem, or is it something that you have to kind of put in front of them and say, look, this is a challenge, and if we can solve it, it'll make your life better?
I think it's often one of the things we seem to spend quite a lot of our time doing is clients, you know, prospects will come to us saying, I've got this problem, I've identified this problem over here, and that's my real problem. Quite a lot of the time we find ourselves, and this will probably chime with you, Simon, saying, well, actually, if we just take a step back, I think you'll find if you were to have a look at what's going on, that, yeah, that is a problem, but there's a much bigger problem burning over there. That if you went about fixing that one, you might discover you get more reward. It's also like a continuum, isn't it? Most people say, oh, I want to transform my business. I want this massive program of change. It's going to take 18 months. It's going to revolutionize what we do. To which the answer is, fine, set off on that journey, but I bet you'll get half, 2/3 of the way along it and then decide it's not worth going any further.
Yeah, I love that idea of it, isn't it? We're trying to solve these sort of big problems without actually looking at kind of the fundamental building blocks first. So in healthcare, you know, we're talking about like, let's build robots that can do this and this AI manage that. But actually, wouldn't it be great if you could just get a GP appointment without having to ring at 8 a.m. and sitting on a phone line until 8:02 when all the appointments have gone? You know, this is where the innovation needs to happen, at those fundamentals that we're not getting right. The data sets that aren't right, the way, the architecture isn't there. So until we change people and processes, it's no good layering on a technological solution, because it's not actually going to solve your problems. It's going to add another one.
There's a real consultancy phrase, isn't there, that's been used for years, which is what the client wants isn't necessarily what the client needs. And it's not, you know, we kind of laugh about it, but actually in reality, it is really about what you just said about getting those processes, understanding what needs to be changed, helping them move into that change. If you don't, they'll get what they want, but it won't be what they need.
No. It's also a scale of cost thing, isn't it? If you set off on a 18-month program of business change, anybody who sets off on that program, if they knew how painful it was going to be and they got to the end of it, they would never start.
Yeah, agreed.
It's much better to say, look, we've got all these problems, let's choose the one that we can have the biggest impact first, and let's just solve that one. And when we've done that properly, let's think if there's something else we can move on to.
Go on.
I was going to say, I think there's a crossover here as well, because you've got to start with the simple things. So for us, you know, a pharmacist goes to university for years, they study for years to add value to patients. So they don't want to be answering phones all day to tell patients where prescriptions are up to. So what we've done is we automated this dispensing process so pharmacists can focus more on clinical services, which will in turn benefit GPs and will speed that waiting time up.
Yeah, Rhys,
there's a crossover there.
It absolutely resonates. I mean, I became a psychologist to see people, and at some point I found myself probably spending 70 to 80% of my time on admin, essential admin that has to be done. But actually, my job now, or what I like to do now, is I build apps to automate some of those administrative processes so I can get back to the good stuff and actually be with people, deliver the interventions, because all the talk of technology, actually, you know, we need to remember that we are human beings, and human beings benefit from interaction and contact and support from other human beings. So I think it's been said a lot today, but let's build tools that take care of all the jobs that we don't want to do, so that we can free ourselves up to do our jobs properly.
Do you think, I mean, that, you know, that admin burden is something that appeals to me as a person in professional services?
You accountants love admin.
Here's
another form.
The lawyers at work. Is this one of the problems around business now? Is we've kind of got a bit admin blind, you know, and what we seem to be becoming is more and more sort of focused inwards in terms of like we've got to get rid of the admin issues, but we forget about the outcomes for our customers, our patients, whoever it is that we're dealing with.
I mean, I did a piece of consultancy work not long ago where I went to see a business that's they sell bulk oil products. And when I went to sit in their contact centre, I sat down and watched, and there was a piece of information that the managing director had asked for that was being recorded no less than 7 different ways. We added it up. Each time they took a phone call, they were spending 3.5 minutes recording this one piece of information, despite the fact that 90% of their phone calls, because they're outbound sales calls, don't connect. So for a non-connection phone call, 3.5 minutes wasted recording the fact that you didn't speak to anybody. I mean, that's madness. Yeah. So it's a trust thing. fundamentally, all the different people up and down the organisation didn't trust that anybody else was recording this figure properly. So they all recorded
Comes
it.
back to the human relationship issue rather than the tech being the issue.
Which is actually then counterproductive, because the MD then gets his figures. He gets 7 different figures, all meant to show the same thing. And you know what? Every single one of them was different.
That leads on to a very key thing that we've exposed over the past couple of years, which is around that much research, that much information. It's an overload. So when people look for things on the internet, there are 27 ways of doing the same thing. So bringing that down to, okay, so what really do we have here? How do you focus on it? And what's the journey you want to go through? Focusing all that with processes and such is the best thing to do. But actually, we don't do it naturally. We tend to love the fact there's too many things out there. But someone once said to me recently, when they go shopping, there's too much choice. And we've all experienced that. You go to a shop, you know, I won't mention any, but there are some stores that sell anything and everything, aren't there? You walk in and think, well, you know, I can fill it with fuel, I can buy
Chainsaw.
I buy a chainsaw, I can buy a gazebo, I can buy clothes, you know, the whole thing. Now, that's great, but how often you walk around and think, well, I don't really know what I want anymore. And it's the same thing with information. There's so much out there. If we bring it back together and say, all right, what we need is this, have someone to help to get to that point, and it's a need, not a want.
Nice.
So here's a quick question for the audience. How many of you have business critical spreadsheets that are working somewhere in your system?
Love a business critical spreadsheet.
Oh, come on, there's only a few hands.
Come on, there's more business
Be
critical
honest.
spreadsheets
Let's be
than
honest. Some people are working on them
I'll tell
right
you
now.
what, I'll do a deal with anyone in this room. If anyone in this room wants me to come and look around their business for half a day, I'll find you 5 business critical spreadsheets.
Always selling.
In half a day.
Someone's going, I don't even know what they are, but I'll put it in a spreadsheet to check. Yeah. So,
But how do we get out of that kind of world of, you know, living in spreadsheets? Because, I mean, you know, it's a very human thing, right? This isn't it. You know, they're familiar to us. We kind of grow up using them. We come through the education system getting familiar with them. And then obviously when you get into the workplace, you know, everyone's got a spreadsheet of some description. And is it just the fact that because we are comfortable, we don't go looking for another solution? What's your thoughts on this, Rhys?
Yeah, I think firstly, products need to be created to replace those systems.
agreed. Yeah.
And then it's a mindset shift. So for us, you know, you've got to be able to provide the pharmacists with tools to be able to manage the dispensing process. So they're not, you know, they're not just looking in the PMR system 24/7. But yeah, I think firstly it's creating the tools that allow them to do that, and then it's all about mindset.
Yeah, and you know, we're often dealing with people, and if you sort of talk about what the disruptive mindset is, it's often that idea of being like just a little bit ahead of the curve. You know, like I'm a psychologist, but you know, my brother's in this room, he's an engineer. I come from generations of engineers who all think it's completely mad how slow and behind healthcare is. But I'm in a unique position where I've been able to bring that like tech mindset, that engineering mindset into healthcare. But I am ahead of the curve, and it's not that I'm particularly special doing that. There are other people in a similar place like Rhys, but it means you're constantly battling that mindset of someone going, it's easier. I know my spreadsheet, it works. It's worked for ages, don't worry. It sits on this one laptop, and don't worry, you know, and it's people get comfortable, and it's scary to change. And change actually takes effort, and it takes frontal lobe activity. And so it is more difficult, but you know, once you get used to it and it becomes routine, then it's easy, but you have to get past that bit.
I think that's an interesting thing, again, you said about people getting comfortable. It's a defensive thing that you often find.
Because you expose their bad
practice.
practice.
I mean, it sounds unpleasant, but you know, if I go to visit someone and they've got a call centre with a couple of hundred people in it, and I spend all day wandering around in a suit and a tie with a clipboard, making notes, what's everyone's first thought? Who are you looking to get rid of?
Yeah.
Now that's often not what we're about. Our thesis is very much, I think I'm going to say the AI word so that we can
Bingo.
So there we are. Said the AI word. We get asked a lot about, you know, should we put AI in? Should we use AI to get rid of staff? Our answer is absolutely not. You should if you want to use AI tools, automation tools, any other tools you like, they should be used to augment the most valuable asset that 90% of businesses have, and that's their people.
One of the biggest things that MagnifyB is trying to change for the small business world is that. It's to say, okay, you've got all these things that you're comfortable with. However, there is a better way. Pull all this together, have a seamless integration with your data, your management information, your business intelligence. Have it in one place, start the process and work with it. So you move away from spreadsheets, you move away from endless conversations with your accountant and others that you don't need, to the point where you can say, you know what, I understand now, I can have a proper conversation with John. And John's team.
Get to the good stuff.
About tax advice and other things. That's what we've tried to create, because that's the disrupting bit that we're trying to make a difference with, to say, move away from your comfort zone, but look, this isn't rocket science. This is something that says, here's all your information. Look at it, use it. That's the point.
So we're in a world at the moment now, which I think we've kind of talked about already this morning, where there is constant change, isn't there? For all organisations, whether it's technological change, whether it's regulatory change, whether it's governmental change, a whole bunch of things that are affecting us, like macro changes that are having an inward effect on businesses. How do businesses manage that, right? Because we can't be in this disruptive mindset permanently, surely, and just be constantly changing things all the time, or can we? And are organisations capable of being in that place, and also, most importantly, bringing their people along that journey with them at the same time?
I think that idea of bringing people along on the journey is an important one. One of the main things I tend to find when looking at problems that clients bring to us is often about the fact they've probably got the tools to do what they need to do already, and they're not getting the most out of them. Either somebody was trained to use it and they've left, or something went wrong and now there's a lack of trust in it, or they never bothered to, I wouldn't like to rubbish the competition, but we are in a competitive space with lots of vendors, big and small. People who tend to buy the bigger ones, Salesforce. Sorry, did I say that out loud? You tend to find they end up paying for that, and they use this little tiny bit of it over here, but they still pay for all of it.
Yeah, and you can't get out of that contract.
Yeah,
like
exactly. More often than not, we end up saying to people, look, it's not that I don't want to sell something to you. I'd love to sell something to you, but actually, if you just use what you've already got, your problems are already solved. Yeah. But your staff either aren't using them, don't trust them. It's more often than not a people problem, not a technology one.
I think also change in big organisations compared to small ones. So I come from the big consultancy world. So again, I work with, let's just say, an FM provider with several billion turnover nationally. The change processes were huge and they were cumbersome. You couldn't change in less than 6 months if you were lucky. And when you work with small businesses, it's a completely different environment. So the agility they have and ability to change is just fantastic. So I think it depends on what you're looking at as to where that change would come from and whether they embrace it. Some people, I admit, they'll never change. And we've talked about this a lot with accountants. When we talk to accountants, positive thing. We talk to accountants about their clients, they say the same thing. There's a portion who they know will never change. Yeah. Others, they say, they'll embrace these kinds of things and technology and AI and everything. And I think that's where we've got to watch out for, because the big change stuff that people hold up to say, but the IBMs of the previous world used to do it this way. Yeah. That's not where we are anymore. Yeah. It's agility.
And like you say, change management is, I'm a psychologist, that is what we do. We help people manage change. And even then, I found it so frustrating coming up against these health systems. And people are jaded, disillusioned, burnt out. You're coming across that with your new ideas, and we're going to make it better. You're battling all of that. But to go back to that question, is it worthwhile? In healthcare, every single person in this room, and this is a bit of a gloomy bit, I'll lift the spirit in a minute, is going to be affected by dementia, by a serious illness, either directly or a relative. Every single person in this room. We're not doing anything about this. We are just sitting there hoping that it's going to get better on its own. 6 months change would be amazing. If you implement something in the healthcare service, you're talking 5 to 10 years before you get that bedded in. That's the sort of change we're looking at. So we have to do this. And we as health professionals want the world to be healthy and well. That's great for us. So that's why we have to keep doing this. And we have to keep moving and innovating, even if it's difficult.
Rhys, you're a co-founder of a small business, and I mean, same question really to you, but do you have concerns about, as your business grows and scales, that you'll maybe lose that innovative touch?
I think that's all about leadership and communication throughout the company. I think we're at a stage now where we're really agile. As Simon said, the smaller you are, the more agile you can be. But I think for us, it will be cutting out the middle management. So we want direct communication with each business function. So I think it's all about leadership, it's all about communication, and it's about being consistent in your messaging to each of your teams.
So how do bigger organisations take that kind of small company agility and embrace that and make it their own? Penny, you work effectively part of a machine that's the biggest employer in the UK, possibly the world. Third biggest in the world, I think. Yeah. So how does that translate? Because if you're saying that organisational change or innovative change takes 5 to 10 years, that's in some respects that's understandable, but in other respects that's not acceptable. So how do you accelerate that change and make it happen more effectively?
And I think going back to Rhys's point, it is about leadership, and it's about recognising that leadership is not just about about leading a team, it's about leading the direction, that horizon scanning, seeing what the focus is, knowing what's going to happen. You know, we're sitting here, we know what's going to be happening in the next 5, 10 years in healthcare because we are seeing the patients now that we're going to be seeing. We need to take action now, but it's for, I think that action has to happen at a leadership level because it's not for the person on the ground, on the coalface, to be doing all this innovation and change. They're just trying to get through the day.
So maybe, sorry, what happens though if the leadership aren't willing to embrace that change or aren't giving the right messaging down to people to say this is what needs to happen? What do we do then?
That's a difficult one.
Do you get rid of them?
I don't know. I don't know. What I would
Go on,
say
Rhys,
is,
tell us what you really think.
I just think it's super important that it's not just about the leadership team that you know, that has a vision as to where the business is going to go. It's about sharing that and ensuring that, you know, all of your team are aligned with where you want to take your business and the problems you're trying to solve.
I think that team aspect is an interesting one. I was at a dinner not long ago where we were having a debate about the pros and cons of hiring and retaining staff. I think the conclusion we all arrived at is it's really important to have that. You need that leadership, but you also need a mix of people who are just there to do the job and people who are there to be on the journey with you, as it were, especially if you're trying to grow a small business. You need that mix because you need that knowledge and that desire to head in a particular direction to permeate all the levels of your organisation. Otherwise, you're not going to get anywhere. So even the greatest CEO setting a vision, if he's not supported further down the chain, isn't going to get to where,
So
where he wants to go.
if you come across that, Tom, in like your consultancy, what do you do if you identify that the problem is in fact the leadership rather than anything else? How would you manage that? Is it?
So we come across this.
45.
We come across this frequently. I think it's
interesting.
I think it's a relationship thing. I think it's all about making sure that when you're, certainly for us, we work with organisations ranging from the very small to the very large. If you don't have stakeholders at different levels, all of whom are bought into what you're doing, you're wasting your time. Quite often, you know, our sales cycles tend to be long, you know, 18 to 24 months. Quite a lot of that time is actually spent consensus building that there's a problem that everybody wants to head in the direction and fix. Because quite often when we start talking to people, everyone will tell you that there's a different problem, and that's not something we can do anything about.
And that's one of the reasons I moved away from the corporate world, so dealing with large organisations. I think for me, the big thing is that there are good examples of where big organisations have listened to smaller ones and changed their processes. So without naming the names, there's a financial systems provider that actually really does engage properly at the right levels, to the point where they invited me, who unheard of at the time, to a roundtable with the House of Lords Committee for AI and Communications on their behalf to represent small business and what they call, again, disruptors in the industry. Now that is tremendous. It's the start of things to come. And other organisations have done the same. And even with, when I used to work for the FM provider, they were really bad at it. But the ones I was working in, if you like, in joint vehicles as it was at the time, they were good at it. And I think we've got examples of where that works. So if we can make that come down again into reality, so big organisations, I know NHS is a bit different, but most organisations can do this. It's been shown. This organisation, by the way, is about 35, 40 billion turnover. So you can imagine, you know, if they're doing it, others can.
Yeah. So I want to, because we're getting close to the end of time, I want to sort of wrap up with some things from you guys in terms of what can the audience take away to help drive disruption, innovation, creative thinking into their organisations and the go away. So go on, Rhys.
I think I would say when you're building a business, try and foster a culture where one of our values is ideas fuel innovation. So it's about making every member of the team feel that they can speak up, making everyone's ideas feel valued, and you know, whether it's someone that comes in to clean the office or whether it's a consultant that we speak to, if they come in with an idea we feel that can drastically change the way the business is moving, then if it's an idea that we feel, you know, is worth taking on, then we take it on.
Nice. So I've realised I hadn't prepared anything for this bit, so yeah, the bit that was definitely going to come up. But I do think it is about partnering with people. Actually, I've realised on my journey, I started off as a sort of a lone wolf with an idea that was going to be a great idea, but I've realised along the way you need that support. And actually there's great other organisations doing aligned things that you can work with, and it's nice, everyone plays nicely together because it's all about that greater mission, and just get that support and build those networks. But I think coming to stuff like this, keeping yourself innovative by hearing about what's going on, not being too siloed, and opening your eyes to other industries and seeing where that technology can come across. Just a quick example of that, eye gaze technology. We now use it in healthcare for people that can use communication devices on it. They can drive their wheelchairs, all sorts of functions. That technology came from Walmart, who were trying to figure out where people look when they come into the shop so that they could position their goods properly. And so we've taken that technology, and not that that isn't a good thing, I guess, but we've done some good, real good with it. So I think there are lots of examples where you can cross over. So keep your eyes open and, yeah, keep disrupting.
I've got 2 points. One is I'm going to mention technology and AI again because I've got a standing bet with my team. I can get AI.
How many have you got in? Yeah,
twice. So I've now won. For anyone who's watching on the stream.
This is like government ministers voting.
Yeah, bing.
Yeah.
Gambling on the
It comes from a lifetime of consultancy. If you don't go out to a meeting with a client with a word you've got to slip in, then you're not playing properly. Yep. So yeah, technology, by all means adopt it, but don't let it cloud the fact that it's there to augment the most valuable thing most businesses have, people. People are what make businesses succeed, not technology or anything else. And the second one is, if you're in whatever it is your organisation does, you have customers, ask your bloody customers what they want. You'd be surprised how many companies come and say, I've got this massive problem. I watched a presentation not very long ago by an evangelist for a big software company who was telling the story all about a company that sells drones. And they basically said, why are we selling no consumables for drones? And they went for 6 months trying to figure out this answer. In the end, the customer service manager stuck his hand up and said, I know why we're not selling any consumables. It's because 30 to 50% of our drones have this, what's called the fly-away drone problem. As soon as you take them out of the box, the GPS doesn't think, they take up in the air, fly, never seen again. That's why you never sell any consumables, because nobody keeps them long enough. Nobody bothered asking, so they didn't find out.
Brilliant example.
Follow that, eh?
Yeah. In 50 seconds.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Pressure, Simon.
My key point is, two things. One, don't be afraid, okay? That's the key. A lot of people say, well, I'm in the comfort zone, I can't move out of that. That's just one of those things you've got to get over. But actually, use the market that's there. So disrupt by all means, find something new, but use the market, work with them, get to the point where everybody wins. That's what we've been trying to do, and I've seen it work lots of times in the past. And one final thing is, there's a guy here today, good friend of the business. He'll know who he is. He's recommended a book to me recently, and I think it's fantastic. It's by a guy called Chris Voss, and it's called, and I've forgotten the name of the book now, there we go. He's basically an FBI negotiator, hostage negotiator, and he talks about never split the difference. That's what it's called. Fantastic book. Read it if you can.
Well, thank you very much. We are a few seconds over, and Sam's going to kick us off in a second. So are we conga lining off? Is that what we agreed?
Absolutely.
I think we can do that. I would say thank you very much for listening. When I talk about innovation with our team, the thing that I say to our people is the only limitation that you have is your lack of imagination, and that we can help you to foster that imagination by challenging you on your preconceptions.
Nice.
Brilliant. Thanks.
All right, guys.